Nerdcast assemble!
Stay dandy, baby.
The borrowed power of the gods, known as Charyeok, goes crazy in another super exciting and action-packed episode of The God of High School. This was an exceptional episode of the series. Not only did it feature some of the best action from a show which is known for all of its intense action scenes, but all three of the main characters got to do some pretty awesome stuff in this episode and all go off on their very own specific adventures, despite the fact that they are smack dab in the middle of a massive martial arts tournament. And this episode also sort of played with my expectations. I really was firmly believing that all of these main characters were eventually going to derive their power from the gods themselves, something that's been hinted at since the beginning of the series. And I was fully convinced, of course, that freaking Mori was going to end up being like the Monkey King or some senses. But this episode sort of played around with that, for the fact that apparently Mira seems to use the power of the Monkey King in this episode, or at least someone who is similar to a Monkey King, none other than Big Lubu himself. And I only know who Lubu is because my girlfriend plays a lot of Dynasty Warriors, and apparently everybody loves Lubu in that game. He's a big, super powerful man, and she is able to use his big superpowers. But there's a lot of other big things going on in this episode, so let's kind of break it down, what goes on, and all of the exciting moments. So, picking up from the end of the last episode, Mori learns that his grandfather has been captured, so he immediately decides to leave the tournament, which at first seems like a pretty bad idea, considering that Daewi has already been suspended, which of course means he cannot participate. So if Mira is the only one who's going to be a part of this tournament, if she wins too early and no one else is able to come in and fight, their team is just going to immediately lose. So that adds a tremendous amount of tension here. So Mori goes off and leaves. Mira and Daewi are really sort of like freaked out over this, so Daewi decides that he's going to go on his personal mission to try and find him, while Mira tries to go into this big battle and try to not defeat her opponent too quickly. And all of them go through some really crazy stuff. First, let's go ahead and talk about Mira, who's battling against the first member of this team, this guy by the name of Lee Marin, who is giant and practically freaking naked. He's a giant, muscly armed, super oiled up dude who is incredibly powerful. And hilariously enough, being a giant oiled up man actually gives him advantage against this girl who uses a wooden sword, because every single time she attacks him, her attacks just sort of slide directly off of his body. But he's also really intense for the fact that we learn that he's actually being used by the Nox organization. He actually has that sword that originally belonged to Mira, and he's able to bring out its true form, which looks all sorts of awesome. It's like this national treasure-esque weapon, as they actually call it, and he's able to use it in a lot of really crazy ways. And what's even insane is how this sword actually sort of like imprints itself on the people that it considers strong enough. So even when Mira actually manages to beat this guy down and take the sword back, it immediately goes right to him. Now, while all of this is going on, we get to see that Daewi is actually trying to find Mori when suddenly he's attacked by some random girl out of nowhere who's dressed as frickin' Bruce Lee, and they end up having a small fight, which pretty much results in what might be one of the most shocking scenes of the series, where basically she sort of falls in love with Daewi during this moment. She even ends up kissing him randomly. I'm not sure what the deal is here, but we get the biggest takeaway from this is that apparently she's a member of Jagel's team. So she's crazy, she's insane, and she's a really good fighter. But then there's everything else going on with Mori. He ends up going to like this random warehouse where suddenly he finds his grandfather, but he learns that it's actually not his grandfather at all. It's this clone, which suddenly just explodes out of nowhere, destroying everything, and we get to see that Mori has survived this, and he's being attacked by this member of Nox who goes by the name of Pei Long, who seems to have the ability to create clones of himself as well as clone other people for his very own methods. And we get to see that everybody that is actually involved in the tournament right now on Lee Marin's team, who Mira is battling against, are actually clones that he has personally created, and thus another fight scene ensues. And was anybody else getting Matrix vibes from this, of watching Mori battle against all of these clones of Pei Long, this guy who's in a freaking business suit? It was basically Neo versus the Agent Smith clones, and it was a really great scene in and of itself, and I love how they made it seem like it was going to be so hopeless for Mori to actually battle back against these guys. But then we get that awesome twist towards the end of the episode, which I cannot wait to talk about, because this is one of the biggest shocks. So Of the three main characters, the first one to formally use their Charyeok in an interesting way is going to end up being Mira, when suddenly she has this weird moment where she sort of communicates with her inner version of herself and is able to utilize her Charyeok abilities to basically use the power of Lubu, which basically just pumps herself up and allows her to take her sword back, taking down Lee Marin in a blaze of glory. And my friends, this looked incredibly awesome. I mean, all of the great fight scenes previous looked really great, but they're really starting to kick things up to a brand new level here, especially when Lee also uses his very own Charyeok abilities, which is basically the Kraken, a giant freaking octopus of death, and watching her dodge all of its massive tentacles and cut through them with her brand new sword is nothing short of satisfying. But what's really great here is that she does actually end up winning, and my thought was, holy crap, she ended up finishing off this guy. How are they going to be able to get Mori back in the ring in time? And she passes out from all of her power, but before she can fall over, Mori grabs her, he comes in, and he has arrived, and that leads us to the next battle. Yes, they decide to even give us another fight in this episode against another member of this team, which is really cool, because we finally get to see more of Mori's abilities and some brand new ones that we have never actually seen before. And they do this thing where we get to show this sort of double-sided view, where on one side you have him battling against Paylong, and on the other side you have him battling against this other guy. It's this really cool split-screen battle with the distinctive art style attached to it, and you get to see him taking out both of them with these brand new abilities, which look all sorts of awesome. A brand new multicolored form of the triple kick, which looks great, not to mention the return of that blue dragon kick, which he's able to do a double version of, which just looks great. It basically summons a giant ethereal blue dragon, which just attacks this guy and just wrecks his freaking world. Basically, Mori was pissed. Not only was he tricked in thinking that his grandfather was actually going to be hurt and kidnapped, but now he realizes that his team could potentially lose, and this was all sort of a plan to basically get them knocked out of a tournament. Basically, Nox is trying to infiltrate this tournament for their very own evil deeds, but this scene right here, guys, oh man, it was so good, and it was followed by so many other action scenes. There was so much action in this episode, it was kind of actually hard to fathom, and I'm waiting for that moment where the series is going to, pump the brakes a little bit, and, give us a little more of the story and the lore of the world, and yet at the same time, I'm really enjoying all of the action that they continue to give us, because it's really solid, it's well animated, and it's executed so damn well. At this point, this is just a crazy action anime series, and I really hope the momentum is going to continue throughout the season, and considering we're already this far in, I have a feeling it's not going to be slowing down anytime soon, and I think that's what's going to make people really enjoy this one right here, and I can honestly still say that of the anime I'm watching this season, it's still my favorite. I still get the most entertainment value from it. I love not only the choreographed action, which is always really fast-paced and really well done, but now that we're finally starting to introduce all of these crazy powers into the series, everything has just been kicked up to a brand new level. That, combined with the distinctive character designs and fighting styles, make this just a breakneck, awesome premier action anime series, and you'd be hard-pressed not to check it out. So, what's the rundown on this episode of The God of High School? What can I say, aside from just the absolute craziness of this episode? And I love the fact that everybody got to fight. The three main characters all got to do something really great in this episode. Of course, I think Daewi ended up getting the short end of the stick, considering that his fight was the shortest and the person he was fighting against was a little goofy in some senses, but she was still a pretty damn good fighter in her own right. I just didn't expect her to, straight up kiss him in this episode. That was kind of strange. But the shock that she's a part of Jagel's team is great because, again, they're building up that eventual confrontation with him and his team, which I think is going to be really solid. The two big stars of this episode were none other than Mira and Mori, though. They both really got to strut their stuff in this episode. Mira, in particular, finally being able to use her Charyeok, which I thought was really awesome, and the overall image of Lubu standing behind her as she was powering up for that first time looked so freaking awesome and satisfying. That, with her overall fighting style of not only using her sword but hand-to-hand combat, looked incredibly solid as always. Mori, though, was also just great in this episode. I mean, that final scene, that split-screen battle, man, that was freaking legendary. The way that was handled was so immensely satisfying, and that battle that he had against Paylong and that one other member of the team was beyond awesome. Everybody else who's getting ready to go into this tournament against this team, they should be crapping their pants after seeing this. There's no way that they're going to be able to defeat this guy who can essentially summon dragons just from his freaking feet. That's basically what this guy can do, and it is nuts. And it works so well in this episode. So it's one of those episodes, too, that it goes by so fast. You kind of have to watch it a couple of times to appreciate a lot of the smaller details and what they're actually going to be doing with this Nox organization, and just to appreciate the overall animation itself, which continues to just melt your eyes with how incredibly good that it actually looks. It's crazy how with every episode they manage to build and build and build and make it even better. And I do think that as the series goes on, it could oversaturate itself with how crazy the powers could get. I call it the Dragon Ball Z syndrome, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's where like the series starts out with a lot of really great standard hand-to-hand type choreography, but as the series goes on, we're going to start to see these way crazy, elaborate powers, but as long as they can continue to make the action scenes look as good as they are, I think it's going to be really good, but I still want them to be able to keep that really awesome hand-to-hand looking combat in the series, as I still think that's just as entertaining as any sort of giant Lubu or giant Kraken-esque power. That being said, I cannot praise this episode enough. It was simply just awesome. I truly loved it. I'm giving this one a 5 out of 5. The production value was through the roof. The character moments were really fantastic. The building up of other teams, the evil of the Nox group and all the crazy powers that they use, and Mira and Mori just going to absolute town in this episode. What more can I say? It was really great. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about this episode, and you can tell me in the comment section below. Make sure to sound off telling me what you thought about this episode and what you hope to see from the rest of the season of The God of High School. So thank you guys so much for watching this review. Please subscribe to the channel for more reviews and anime reviews just like this one. If you liked this video, make a fist, smash that like button. It helps out these videos a lot and ensures that more people can see my content. I also want to thank all of my patrons who've been checking out my Patreon page. You guys are incredible, making monthly donations, watching my videos. Remember, first-time donators, I'll review an anime series of your choice, and I'd love to add your name to this list of super awesome people who support this channel every single day. So thank you guys so much for watching this review. I'll see you all next time, and as always, stay down there, baby.